They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I think it's safe to say at this point that of the gacha games among the big four, Zenless Zone Zero is my favorite of the bunch. However, I've never really taken the opportunity to expand on why, other than the occasional backhanded comment against open world gacha games, or my enjoyment of a character or two within the ZZZ world. So today, I want to take this opportunity to express my love for this game and why that is, from its world, its gameplay, and down to its smaller aspects that help to make it a gacha game that I enjoy. The world of ZZZ, right from the start, has established itself as this almost cartoon-like fantasy world that has no problems with flipping the switch and presenting a dark narrative under the surface. A character like Bernice can exist in the game with her happy-go-lucky, intoxicating behavior, while at the same time someone like Hugo and his struggles with personal freedom and his haunting past can exist as well. It's frankly an insane world filled with the quirkiest characters you could find. Yet it's all taken seriously by its characters, and by extension, the player is able to take it all seriously as well. As for the characters themselves, the ZZZ team made the right call in creating each playable character as part of a major or minor faction in the game's world paired with several other playable characters, ensuring that major story content involving a single character will in most cases include several additional characters for them to build off of one another, flesh their personalities out, and create more interesting story dynamics. This is further enhanced through the implementation of the Hangout system, a small collection of activities the player can partake in with a character of their choice that allows them to bond over several Hangout events to raise a relationship meter, unlocking unique scenes for said character at certain point thresholds. This allows for a more organic buildup of a relationship between the player and the character that's kept to the side as to not be shoehorned into the main story, while also at the same time not being an afterthought of a handful of voice text boxes buried away in a character archive. I also greatly appreciate the protagonists, Belle and Wise, for being their own characters in the world of ZZZ, bucking the trend of the silent protagonist approach that we've grown all too accustomed to in other gacha games. The last thing I want to talk about with this section is of course the character designs. There is a wide array of aesthetics for characters with a great level of variety thanks to ZZZ's everything in the kitchen sink approach to designs. Aside from your typical humanoid characters, there's also bipedal animals, animal-human hybrids, automatons, and even humanoid characters with physical features based on depictions of popular folklore from European and Asian varieties. These combinations of racial designs are given further creativity through the aforementioned factions in the game world and how they're based on common real-life occupations and personal identities. You've got street hustlers, construction workers, police officers, butlers and maid services, the military, government agents, biker gangs, famous musicians, high-class society members, temple monks, and even Redditors. This level of detail and care put into character designs even extends to a great number of NPCs in the game world. Many NPCs in Zenless Zone Zero are given a greater sense of identity thanks to their unique designs that help to set them apart and helps to settle the player into the fantastical setting of the game's world. Need I say any more? As a game world, ZZZ's interpretation of a modern-day setting with elements of futuristic technology gives it a massive edge and identity among the medieval fantasy and science fiction settings we see an abundance of in gacha game settings, while at the same time leveraging said fantastical elements in the designs of its characters, all while treating everything like it belongs in this world. Moving on from the world of ZZZ, I've got to talk about the combat system of the game. Right off the bat, the visual and sound design of this game does a lot to carry a visual spectacle that sets it apart from the rest of the gacha games. The hard clang of metal, coupled with the close-up crooked camera angle from a defensive assist to emphasize the weight of a parry following up with a counterattack, the slowed down and sped up series of blows during a chain attack, and the sudden but cinematic wipeout screen to close out a fight. All these, and the many animations and sound effects of each agent's moveset, come together to create a combat system that can't be beat when it comes to its sights and sounds. It's not just the visuals though, as Zenless Zone Zero offers a greater degree of player flexibility and skill expression when compared to most other gacha games. ZZZ is not meant to be played with a traditional skill rotation that many competitors follow. Its combat is meant to be more situational and puts more focus on your reflexes and resource management. That's not to say you can't play in a very paint-by-numbers manner, but you limit the potential of your performance in doing so in ZZZ. As a player, your primary focus should be playing around the movesets of your opponent. Only then can you follow up with what your own team can do in response. To close out the combat section, there's also a great number of enemy variety in ZZZ, many of whom have variations of themselves to turn up the heat or spice up their moves. An enemy like the Pteroraptor must be handled differently from the Palsius, which is different from the specialized Assault Bomber, which is different from the Sacrifice Heretic Jester, which is different from Doppelganger Hugo, which is different from the many other bosses to fight in the game. Between the visual spectacle, the more lax way players can play their teams, and the enemy variety, I can say that I find Zenless Zone Zero's combat to be the most engaging and visually appealing out of the modern gacha games. Next up, we have progression systems. Out of the big four, Zenless Zone Zero has the most flexibility and adjustable stamina consumption from resource acquisition activities, starting at 20 stamina and can be incrementally increased by 20 until you reach a cap of 100. This helps for players to finally manage their resources to get what they need without too much overflow when compared to the other games. While on the topic of stamina flexibility, players are given 3 free attempts for weekly boss materials from Notorious Hunt, as well as an additional 4 boss drops purchasable from the Outpost Logistics every month. If that's not enough for you, there's always the option to spend stamina to attempt bosses as many times as you want without a weekly limit. When compared to the big four, ZZZ is the most generous with the ability to farm bosses for critical ascension materials for characters. As for the positives of the stamina system itself, players are given 80 additional stamina a day through the coffee shop, effectively giving players a 24-hour stamina total of 320, the highest of any of the big four. There is also a reserve stamina system that caps out at 2,400, 10 days worth of stamina to consume. This is on par with Honkai Star Rail's stamina system, 5 times more than Wuthering Waves that has a 480 waveplate crystals storage, and Genshin Impact that has absolutely nothing. Wrapping up gear progression, I want to talk about free W engine options and drive discs. ZZZ has the most accessible free options for weapons, with resources dropping consistently from the free boss attempts every week. It's the easiest of the big four to accumulate craftable weapon options. As for drive discs, there are plenty of opportunities to gather discs in ZZZ thanks to free attempts from weekly completions of Hollow Zero, as well as Hi-Fi Master copies from the free weekly boss fight attempts. For disc building itself, there is no substat variance when leveling drive discs, ensuring a minimum guarantee of value when leveling stats on your drive discs. This greatly helps to alleviate a layer of RNG the other games suffer from, where even if players roll the substat they want, they could still be screwed over by low stat rolls. Crafting discs themselves is also incredibly customizable thanks to the ability to pick disc sets, as well as the ability to craft in singles or bulks of 10, as well as the fact that you can craft randomly for pieces 1 through 6 in a set, or spend double the resources to craft for a specific disc number. ZZZ's main stat selector resource, the Tuning Calibrator, is also given out to players the most through event content than the other selector items among the big four. To put this all together, ZZZ has a great collection of additions and features in its progression that helps to alleviate common pain points players might find in other gacha games. Here's some additional things that I couldn't consolidate into a specific category. The endgame content options of Deadly Assault and the Battle Tower offers a greater variety of gameplay when compared to the competition, with the Battle Tower in particular offering a permanent mode and a time-limited mode that gets overhauled throughout the year to offer more up-to-date content offerings to spice things up. I know I recently posted a video voicing my dissatisfaction with roguelike modes in gacha games, but I got to give credit where credit is due, and Hollow Zero, in its more recent iterations, has greatly improved, offering more options for gameplay through the investigation strategies, unique character gear, and the ability to trial certain characters weekly the player might not own. The Bangaboo in the world of ZZZ make for great mascots with such a wide variety of designs and aesthetics, and their animations in combat are always a joy to see. The character tutorials are much better than its competition, which just throws a wall of text at you and doesn't help players come to grips with the character they're trialing. In ZZZ, you're given a video to contextualize the character's playstyle that is followed up with the player being tasked to complete the action in question. For most characters, this repeats 1 or 2 additional times, then you are given the chance to fight a handful of mobs to play around with them. The Godfinger arcade is honestly underappreciated, and I wish more people would give credit for the mini games on offer, as well as I'd hoped for more games to be added in future content updates. The last thing I want to bring up is the differences in ZZZ's banner system, with the A-rank agents on Raid Up being limited to 2 when compared to the competition when there's usually 3 characters on Raid Up, which tends to make it harder for players to accumulate copies of specific characters. I would also like to call attention to the pity counter, which is something none of the other Big 4 do, as well as something for new players, where the beginner banner is merged with the standard banner. This helps new accounts to reach the selectable S-rank agent at 300 pulls a lot sooner than the competition, thanks to the aforementioned 50 beginner banner pulls contributing to the standard selectable counter. All these things come together to make Zenless Zone Zero the game that it is today, and what helps it to stand out among all the other gacha games it's competing with. It's energetic, it's chaotic, it's fun. There is passion to be found in ZZZ, and its development team has a track record of being willing to take feedback into account and making changes to improve the game within the first year of its post-launch development. And with the quality of version 2.1, I look forward to bigger and better updates to keep things going. And with that, I have said all I really wanted to about what Zenless Zone Zero does better when compared to the other gacha games it's competing with in this space. I'd also like to quickly give appreciation to the ZZZ community that does their best to bring everyone together. I've been enjoying my time recently with other creators I share the space with, and look forward to working together to create a better community for a game we all enjoy. But until then, this has been Arikado Zodan, and I'm clocking out.